You both mentioned this in your remarks. You talked about diversifying the teacher workforce. At Mass Inc., we're really committed to this. It's been great to partner with Latinos for Education. We know there's a continuing wave of retirements and resignations related to both demographics and the ongoing effects of the pandemic, which have created significant teacher shortages across the Commonwealth. In addition, growing research demonstrates the value of a diverse teacher workforce for all students. Given that both wings of the education sector have a role to play in getting teachers in classrooms, what work is being done either independently or in concert to meet these needs and to incentivize new diverse teacher development? And I know, Commissioner Riley, you actively are doing research at DESE, but would love to learn more.
Yeah, so, from our time in Lawrence, we were able to kind of triple the number of Latino teachers in a 5-year period or about thereabouts. And I always thought that was some of the secret sauce of some of the positive things that happened there. We are seeing now, people were asking about the workforce in Massachusetts for teachers, and BU just came out with a study that says we've been able to kind of maintain our workforce, although I would say around the edges where we have some issues. But the one good news that came out of this is actually we've been able to diversify more, bring more candidates of color into the workforce during the pandemic than we otherwise would have. Now, maybe some of that's because of the emergency license that we brought in. We're changing some of the rules of what it takes to come and teach in the classroom. But with this kind of process that we're doing, we've given out over $6 million in grants to districts to do this work with us. I talked earlier about the work that Commissioner Santiago and I have done, trying to, really pull students from his pipeline back into the schools in Massachusetts. And I think we have a real opportunity here. We're seeing the diversification take place with our superintendents and principals, and that's heartening. But now the harder work is changing that number from 8% of our teachers to something that more matches what our student population is, which is 40%. Because as you said, one of the data is fairly irrefutable. A child of color that sees just one teacher that looks like them in 8th grade, more likely to graduate from high school and have better life outcomes. And yet rarely is that the case. And so we need to do a better job, and that work continues.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Santiago, anything to add on the higher ed side?
I do.
In terms of this?
Let me make sure my dog, I let, she's gone out.
Okay.
Okay. So what happens when you have a COVID puppy who is, take some of your time. We've worked closely, and we have to work closely on diversifying our teacher corps. It's not easy. We have grants that support students when they get into the college pipeline for that. Let me just give you, I'm always an optimist, but there's a bit of information that really bothered me a lot. It's sort of the intended or unintended consequences of policy. A colleague of mine is publishing a book to come out. It's a Harvard University Press book, and it's about the Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954. And she asked me to write the foreword for it. And as I was sort of getting into an issue that I had not heard of before in detail, and she's well documented in her book, when Brown versus Board of Education decision integrated schools in this country from its segregated school system, which we all, I was 2 years old at the time, but we all support that in general. But there were 100,000 African-American teachers, highly qualified teachers, principals, school officials that lost their jobs. They were essentially excluded from that labor force. And I didn't know that history. And one may say it was, a deliberate or perhaps a not deliberate impact of the Brown versus Board of Higher Education decision. But you wonder, what if we had that pipeline of 100,000 African-American teachers that continued to reproduce itself after a while, and we had the structures to keep those teachers? Would we, be facing the 8%, teachers of color statistic that many of us just find it hard to really understand, because it is such a negative impact on our students. So, I wonder a lot about some of the policy issues that take place and how we respond to them, and what are the long-term consequences. I mean, we all support the integrated school systems, but it did come at a huge cost, unfortunately, to a pipeline that we are now trying to continue to build.
Thank you both for that. As a student who went to the Haverhill Public Schools, I can assure you that it'd be great to deal with this with urgency. Never saw a teacher that looked like me or spoke my language. I came to meet my first teacher of color in college at UMass Boston. And that was the person that ensured not only that I was doing well academically, that I became a United States citizen, that I had a resume. So there's a huge impact, the human impact to those relationships that I think go beyond just the academics, in terms of people who feel invested in these students in a real way and can share a lived experience that's really, really important in understanding how one navigates life. So it's great to hear that you're both committed to this work. And I look forward to seeing what the legislature will do with pending legislation that they're considering.